Welcome to tape 2 of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The 7 habits are interrelated, interdependent, and sequential. On this side, Stephen describes how the 7 habits can help us progress from a state of dependence to a state of interdependence.
Now, my friends, we're going to move into the second part. We have defined basic habits, and we have defined effectiveness. And those two definitions were very important before we approach the 7 habits. I'm going to give an overview of these 7 habits on what I call a maturity continuum. A maturity continuum basically ranges at the low end from dependency up at the upper end to interdependency. The middle position is called independency. Now let's define each of those terms for a moment. Dependency is the attitude of you. You take care of me. You come through for me. You didn't come through. I blame you for these results. The attitude of independency is I. I can do it. I will. Yes. No. I won't. I prefer. Self-reliance. Takes self-confidence to be self-reliant. The attitude or word symbol of interdependency is we. We can do it. We will do it. We'll cooperate. We'll accomplish this. Dependent people need others to get what they want. Independent people can get what they want through their own effort. Interdependent people require their own effort and the cooperation of others to get what they want. It doesn't take much thought, really, to realize how much more mature interdependency is than independency. Also, it doesn't take much thought to realize you cannot really be interdependent, that is, the we attitude, the team spirit, the cooperation spirit, until you are first independent. That's why independence is such a major achievement, so that people are not being victimized by other people. For instance, let's say I'm emotionally and financially dependent upon you. You're my supervisor, you're my boss, you're my father, you're my teacher at school, whatever the situation may be. My grade, my promotions, my salary, a function of your judgment. And also my sense of worth comes from you. If I'm very dependent that way, would I be a good cooperative team member? Would I give you feedback about some of the things we need to do to improve this operation? Or feedback about your own blind spots? All a blind spot is a hidden weakness. We're all aware of our weaknesses, but blind spots are far more tender. We protect ourselves from those areas, and sometimes they're crippling to us in our effectiveness. And we need feedback. But dependent people will not give that feedback. They cannot risk that kind of vulnerability. They cannot risk possibly compromising their career path. So they won't do it. They'll badmouth and bad think instead. I'll tell you another reason they won't give feedback. They're too angry. They're too upset. And they know if they were to express themselves with that spirit, it would disrupt the relationship. They can't risk that. They're too dependent upon the other person. So they cannot be interdependent because they are not yet independent. If a person was financially independent, that doesn't mean they're financially wealthy at all. Some wealthy people are financially very dependent upon their wealth. And if the wealth is lost or devalued for some reason, they're wiped out. But a financially independent person is one who has so many skills and such capacity. There are many options that they could take for employment. They are capable of producing a livelihood for themselves and for their loved ones in many different ways. So they're not running scared of a boss's opinion. And they can be empathic and kind and also direct and forthright and courageous because they're independent. Emotionally, their sense of worth does not come from other people's opinions. It comes basically from within themselves, from intrinsic sources of personal security. Fundamentally, it comes from their integrity to their own value system. So they're more independent. I'll tell you one of the clearest ways to tell whether you and I are dependent is to study anger. Anger and fear, really, both reveal dependency. Whatever makes me angry or I'm fearful of reveals my dependency. Oh, it makes me so mad. You cannot believe what I do. Look how that person's weakness is controlling my behavior. Look how dependent I am. How many of us have a tendency to come back defensively when we're being unjustly dealt with or attacked? It's a natural tendency. How many of us do better when we're treated better? Most of us do. We're very dependent upon the external environment. What if we could carry inside of us enough inward security that we are a function of our values rather than of the conditions, physical or social, that we may encounter? What if we could carry our own weather with us? What if our life was almost totally a product of our value system? Think how independent we could become and how effective we could become, because one of the values we treasure is to be effective with other people, not just to be right and isolated and independent. We want to be interdependent because the very nature of life is interdependent. Think of what we learn in the field of ecology. I just recently read an article on what happens when the rainforests in the South American continent are depleted, the effect that has upon weather and upon vegetation and animal life and humankind elsewhere. Many people are speculating about this hole in the ozone layer, the thinning of it, the bad air, the bad water that can come when people violate ecological principles. Everything is related to everything else, like the domino effect. We are highly interdependent beings, but we can only achieve interdependence if we first become independent to a very high degree, emotionally, intellectually, financially, and physically. I would say physically is the least important. A person can be very handicapped and require other people to help him or her through life physically, but still be intellectually, emotionally, financially extremely independent.